So today we are looking at chapter 9 of the PES book, the sports performance training book, and we are going to be looking at how to train for speed, agility, and quickness. So our goals today are to be able to describe what I mean when I say SAQ training, rationale, the importance of it, which, obviously with athletes, this is pretty sports specific stuff, and then how to design like a good SAQ program, and we'll talk about like how to safely instruct that as well. So looking at speed, agility, and quickness, when we were talking about SAQ training, this is a very sport specific style of training that is designed to improve your speed, that's the S, your agility, that's the A, and your quickness. So defining each of these really quickly before we move on, and then we'll look at these definitions in individually here in just a second. Speed is going to be how fast you can travel from point A to point B, generally in a straight line. So, generally when we're talking about speed, we are talking about traveling in one intended direction as fast as possible. When we're talking about agility, we are talking about multi-directional speed. So oftentimes we are talking about how quickly you can accelerate, how fast you can decelerate, and how fast you can change directions as fast as possible. And then quickness's definition, I personally don't really care for, because I don't think it actually describes what they mean it to very well, but it means your ability to change body position as quickly as possible, which to me sounds very similar to agility. But think of quickness as your reaction time to something. It's how quickly you can respond in kind to something else. So for instance, like if you were, a baseball player, right? And you had to like you are, you're an outfielder, someone hits like a big pop fly, over your head. It's going almost like, it's going all the way to the fences, and you are tracking that as you are running backwards, and then you make a last minute adjustment as you see where the ball is kind of headed. That's quickness, because you're responding to this like external stimulus and changing your body position to match it, right? Or if I just simply toss something to you and you changed your body position to react to it, that's your quickness, right? So it is your ability to kind of respond to an external stimulus. That's why all of our quickness drills are sort of things that we are doing that our clients are not expecting. So we'll be looking at, for instance, like what's called the modified box drill, where your client stands in a box and then you are going to point to specific corners. They have no idea which corner they're going to go to until you point it out. And so like that is a quickness drill, because they're responding to a verbal cue as fast as possible. So a little bit of difference. We'll go over it more in depth here in just a second. But obviously, when we talk about SAQ training, it is a huge component of athletic success. Like most sports are built around the idea of who can do whichever activity the fastest. And then by training for SAQ, obviously you're going to improve at it, which means that's going to reduce your risk of injury and improve your overall performance. So a pretty big component of really any athletic program. So looking at the first part of this, we are going to talk about speed, right? So speed, the rate of performance of an activity, right? It's sort of the culmination of your reactive ability. And when I say reactive ability, we're thinking of our definition from yesterday, right? Like, yes, it is how quick you can, sort of respond to something, but it's your ground reaction forces, right? Like the faster you feel that your foot has touched the ground and you can drive through that, foot and get onto your next step, that means that you're going to be able to turn your feet over faster. That's going to result in a greater amount of speed. So like learning how to like react to foot impact on the ground much more quickly results in a much higher sort of force production and carryover and turnover rate, which results in greater speed. We'll also see rapid force development and application is a big part of speed, right? So the ability to, actually recruit those muscles very quickly. And then movement technique is huge here as well. Knowing how to sprint effectively is going to be a big part of speed drills as well. Here's kind of a fun little video I wanted to show you. We're gonna watch a lot of videos today. Training for the 40-yard dash. Where did it go? Is it this one? Yeah, it's this one. So this is actually a very long video, but I only want to show you a little bit of it. But this is training for like the NFL Combine, right? So the NFL Combine, you know, it's tryouts for the NFL, and some of it is very sport specific. You know, some of it is like, you know, running specific drills related to, like, you know, if you're a receiver, learning how to catch. If you're a quarterback, learning how to throw. You know, showing off those skills as best you can. But one of the biggest components of the NFL is the 40, or the 40-yard dash, right? And so this is actually like a gym that's pretty much entirely dedicated to getting athletes in as good a shape to pass their 40-yard dash as possible.
Runs for the rest of your career to make sure that you execute and put this on your resume as your best 40-yard
There's
run
the guy.
life. I talked to him about taking the brakes off at the beginning. And so to start, there are no brakes. There are no stops. It's all go. In the middle of the 40, I tell them to melt the middle down. So we're coming in hot like butter. On the back end, we want to blaze the back end, just fire on the back end. So I think that sort of resonates with the guys as they run through, understand that we're going to have to be fast from the very beginning of the 40.
Oh, come on, come on, come on, come on, come on. Let's get it. Let's get it. Let's get it. Arms. Yeah.
I'm not no average speed receiver as a 4.5, 4.4. Some people.
There's Jerry Judy. But there you can see, like, they are focused entirely on learning how to accelerate as possible. And it's kind of cool. Like this is Michael Johnson's gym, by the way, who used to be an Olympic, you know, very famous 100-meter dasher. Had the record until Usain Bolt came along.
Once I take off, where my hips gonna go? They're gonna come up here to where I run. So let's start with the hips in the position where you run already. Athletes have started to understand that there's a real technique to sprinting in the 40-yard dash.
When we're talking about 4.3, 4.2 speed, inches matter.
I'm looking around the 4.34 at the combine.
So what we're paying attention to, like in this video, right, is they're talking very clearly about very specific form and like running a specific way. I love what that guy said, where he's like, you know, if we're talking about like, you know, elite level 40-yard dashes, the couple of inches in like the angle between like their hips, those inches are the difference between like an elite time and an average time. And so speed is definitely, like, when we're talking about speed, a big component of it is definitely going to be your movement efficiency and your form. Obviously, one thing that we also need to talk about is that speed is affected by that force velocity curve that we talked about the other day when we were looking at force, you know, some of our movement sort of kinetics, right? We were looking at the force velocity curve, and that states that, like, you cannot have a lot of force and a lot of velocity. They have sort of an inverse relationship. Well, when you are sprinting, you start with a lot of force. You are, you know, you're not moving, you have no velocity. So what you're trying to do is you're trying to produce as much force as possible. And that's why whenever you see like the 40-yard dash, I'm gonna mute this actually and just kind of play over it. When you see like a 40-yard dash, like as someone's performing it, let's see if we can get to a version here, right? There's Michael Johnson medals. You can kind of see they're all starting at this super leaned forward position here. By leaning forward like that, that is allowing them to push harder off the ground. So their force production is going to be really high. And then these guys are dragging weight sleds, which is obviously going to make that even harder. So they're practicing right now, like they're just the force production. They're not doing a full 40-yard dash. They are just doing the beginning portion, which is all about like a really hard drive off, right? So they have a big forward lean and they drive off. That allows them to kick harder into the ground, right? And then once they get to the later parts of it, you know, it's going to look something more like this, where, you know, they'll start with a big lean and then you'll notice their body gets more and more upright until eventually they can't really produce any more force. Now it's all about turning that over into increased velocity. So you use the high force to get up to high velocity. Once you're up, then you're trying to carry that momentum forward. There's DK. That's my guy. So like, you're trying to, move this force velocity curve up as high as possible. You're trying to basically take this little curve here and drag it like this. The more force you're able to generate, the faster velocity you're going to have in the end game, right? And the faster you can finish producing force and get to the velocity is really what we're aiming for. So if we're looking at like, this is like speed of travel, right? And then this is like how much force you're generating. There's sort of this like little curve here that happens with that. Now, if we are, the whole idea here is it's the rate of performance, right? We're trying to travel in one intended direction as fast as possible. So this is one thing, actually, I'll give you a good example of this, like in myself. And this is something, if you're an athlete, this is something you kind of want to be aware of. I actually have pretty good like agility. My directional change is okay. It's not bad. It's definitely, could use some improvement. And then like, but that means that like my accelerating, which is part of my speed, the force production part is not really my greatest strength. Like getting up to fast speed is not what I am best at, but my top speed is really, really good. And that comes because like, I talk about this all the time, and like, this is sort of an example of not practicing what you preach, but like, what did I just say yesterday when it comes to developing power? Power is an equation of force times velocity, right? Like you take both of those things together. So you need to train for both. I spent a lot of my career working in like bodyweight style outdoor boot camps, right? Which was doing a lot of like explosive movements, which tend to be very, very high velocity, but I never really put a lot of emphasis on like powerlifting. I like powerlifting. At least I like the intellectual stimulation that comes from powerlifting. Like it's always kind of nice to be like, well, that's kind of cool. That's 5 pounds heavier than I've ever lifted before. Like I like that mental stimulation, but the 3 to 5 minute rest periods, which are very necessary in a powerlifting program, the very long rest periods, they drive me crazy. I find it very hard to take that long to like rest, because my idea of like what working out is similar to, what I've talked about before, where like, I think that you should be, blood, sweat, and tears when you leave the gym, and I don't train my clients that way, but like, that is how, like when I go into the gym, like I get a rush out of, walking, out of there, like limping, like, I'm exaggerating a little bit, but like, so it's funny, I've put a lot of my time and effort into velocity and maybe not enough time and effort into force production, which is kind of funny because you can see it when I play sports. Like you will notice, like if I'm guarding someone and we're standing right next to each other and that person tries to make like a sprint play, they will often get pretty far ahead of me while I am also trying to sprint, because they often have like a faster takeoff speed. And usually I can make up for it with like a fast top speed. But like if it's a really short like pass, I'm not going to get there in time. So if I want to improve my athleticism, if I want to improve like my game, I need to focus more on that force side of things. And then sometimes it's the exact opposite. There's people that sometimes I will guard who will kick off, past me pretty hard, and they might get ahead, but then that's as fast as they are able to travel. And then giving me enough time and like, to getting up to top speed, I will outrun them in the end. That is sort of more of a velocity thing. That type of person needs to focus more on like speed of contraction movements. So we have specific types of drills that can do this when it comes to improving speed. For somebody like me, sprinting with like a weight sled would be really effective. Sprinting with like a parachute would be really effective, or even just a trainer, with a resistance band tied around my belt. Sorry, not tied around my belt, acting as a belt, just dragging me backwards as I try to like force produce would actually be a really good way to improve like force production. Whereas somebody else, it might be more about doing drills that are designed to improve like top speed. So like overspeed drills, such as like running downhill or something, might be really effective. So this, if you're analyzing your athlete, or if you guys are listening to this and you're analyzing yourself, thinking about like playing pickup basketball or football or whatever, if you're like, oh, okay, now I'm starting to kind of get an idea of like what, my strengths and weaknesses are, do an evaluation, grab that self-awareness, and then fill in your gaps. Like that's sort of what we're looking at in all of our clients, in all of our athletes, right? We're looking at their strengths and designing a program that capitalizes on that. And we're looking at their weakness and we're designing a program that fills in those gaps. So speed is going to require plenty of stabilization, plenty of strength, and plenty of power. So this can be used in a very integrated way, similar to the rest of our resistance training and the rest of our exercises. Two of the biggest components that we're going to see, we are definitely looking at strength and power, but we need to have proper stability before we ever try to train for those other things. Speeds is going to improve from stabilization, because stability will improve your balance and your joint mobilization. It's going to improve from strength because that improves your force production, and it's going to benefit from power because that's going to improve your rate of force production. So again, we're coming back to this concept. I told you guys it's going to show up a million times in this course. Speed is also definitely utilizing stretch shortening cycles. A lot of times, one of the things that you'll see people do, I have no idea I'm going to Google that, so I'm not even going to try. But you'll sometimes see people who will try to do like a run, and you'll notice that they sometimes have just like really weird body mechanics while they're running. They'll be very stiff. Their upper body will be like perfectly upright, and they kind of do this like very odd kind of slow run, but they often like reach with their head a lot. That is coming from like improper like mobilization of their joints. Like they're moving the wrong way. And the real problem with that is there is a huge difference between walking and running. So, when we look at like, let's just like look up a picture of somebody walking. If we look up like what it looks like to see somebody like walk, here's some speed walkers even, right? It's a very upright position, and you are basically pulling yourself, whoops, what the heck? You're pulling yourself from step to step, right? Like it's a pulling action. You grab the ground and you kind of grip yourself as you pull it through a full range of motion. Running is actually not like that at all. Running is actually more of a springing action. You want to have an ever so slight lean forward. This is a really good example of like what we want to see in a run. It is a jumping action. You are jumping from leg to leg to leg. And so it actually looks something more like this, where there's a slight lean, and it's more of like almost like instead of jumping straight upright, you're just jumping at an angle a little bit more forward. And when you do that, is this Kip? Could you? Yeah, it is. So this is the freaking fastest guy on the planet right now. You can see like he's got an ever so slight lean in his body that allows him to spring from step to step to step rather than try to pull himself from step to step to step, right? He is basically jumping leg to leg. That's the difference between running and walking. So you'll see people sometimes who are trying to run and it looks like they're just very upright and they're doing like a fast walk. And that's definitely not the type of mechanics we want to have, because that cannot benefit from a stretch shortening cycle as effectively as like a springing action can. By driving your knee up, that creates tension that will want to drive it backwards. And so when you move very quick in both directions, you're going to have much more speed. Looking at this, right, we definitely want to have proper joint mobility and flexibility. That's obviously very huge. Muscle imbalances are going to limit motion. Limited motion is going to result in stiffness. Stiffness is going to result in a decrease in both force output and velocity. So obviously being nice and flexible is going to be a huge component of any speed program. Also, movement technique is very important. One of the things that this is the first time we are seeing this in this course, but we're going to definitely see this in a couple days. We definitely want to make sure that our clients are moving in a biomechanically advantageous position. It's a big fancy way of saying like, hey, you want to move in such a way that like the movement is natural, easy, and the way it was designed to be performed, right? Like when you think about like biomechanically advantageous positions, it's like the reason we tell our clients to drive their knees out while they're squatting. There's two components of that. When you drive your knees out during a squat, effectively, right, something like this versus something like this, what that does two things. Number one, it puts your femur in your socket a lot more effectively so that this squat is actually going to be moving the way it's supposed to. By the way, when I say driving his knees out, you'll notice it's still a very straight line. They're not doing like knee varus, you know, where they're doing like a knee squat action. They're not doing like this kind of thing, right? Although she is still tracking her knee over her toe quite well. It's just driving the knees out while the toes are still pointing straight forward. There's two things that this does. Number one, it puts your femur in the position it's supposed to be in, and that's great. And that's probably honestly the most important, but it also actually shortens the distance that you have to squat. By driving your knees out like that, you are in a more biomechanically advantageous position. You are better able to take advantage of using your quadriceps and glute muscles rather than having to strictly rely on like adductors and certain parts of your quads. You're actually able to use your whole quad in this version versus like just half of it in the other version. So, you know, that is exactly what we're looking for. This is why good form is so important. You know, like obviously it's important for like speed, but it's really important for pretty much everything that we do. So we have a lot of like specialized drills when it comes to a speed program that we are going to do. And, you know, they are going to improve all of the components of a speed program, which I think we'll see on the next slide here. But specialized drills are going to key our clients into proper movement patterns. So they are going to develop hopefully that lean forward. And then it will also enhance their reactionary demands, like how quickly their body is able to get used to, you know, once it hits the ground, getting right into the next step. It will increase their force production and any other neuromuscular demands that they need as well. You know, like core strength is obviously a big one. Foot strength is a big one. Balance, joint stabilization, all of that. Hold on just a second. I need to see something here. Okay, that's coming way down the line. Okay, sorry, I got a little lost there for a second. So there's a lot of specialized drills when it comes to developing speed. I'm going to talk about this now, even though it's not in the slides just yet. But the two things that make up your speed, guys, there's two components to speed that we're going to see here in just a minute. They are going to be your stride rate and your stride length. So when we look at this, you know, remember how I said that power was an equation, right? Power equals force times velocity, right? That's the equation for power, okay? Force times velocity. That's what we're looking for here, right? Well, speed is actually very similar. Speed is an equation as well. Speed is going to equal your stride rate times your stride length, okay? And actually, I'm going to flip those around. Let's put length here, and let's put rate here. So here's the thing about like speed, right? Speed equals stride length times stride rate. That is the same equation as power equals force times velocity. If you think about like stride length, that's how much ground you are covering with every single step. That's the force side of this equation. And stride rate is how often you are taking steps. That's the velocity in this equation, right? So if we think about like power equaling force times velocity, let's say you have, and we're going to make up some fake numbers here. Let's say you have 5 units of force and you have 5 units of velocity. 5 times 5, your overall power output is going to be 25. Now, let's say we raise up one of those things. Actually, I'll put that here. You know what? We'll do this. Let's do it in a different color here. So let's say this is 5 times 5 equals 25, right? So there's our force times velocities first example, right? Now, if you take away one and add it to the other one, like let's say you spend all of your time focusing on training for high force. Let's say you do a lot of like, you know, heavy barbell squats or something, right? And your force output goes to 6 units of force output. Again, we're just making up numbers here as an example. This isn't really going to apply to the real world. But let's say you're going to have like 6 units of force production, but now you've neglected your velocity training, and so that drops down to 4. You know, that's a 1 number difference in each direction. Well, now your overall power output is going to be 24. We actually lost a little bit of power. And the same thing would have been true if we, you know, raised up the velocity by 1 and dropped down the force production by 1, right? So it's not all about like just training for one thing. If you put all of your effort into only training one half of this equation, you're going to lose some speed. But if we raise both of them simultaneously, and suddenly this goes to, you know, 6 times 6, right? That's going to be 36 units, right? That's obviously like a massive improvement, right? That's exactly, you know, this is what we are looking for here, you know? So the same thing could be applied. I could take this exact same example and immediately apply it to like my speed training. So if you are the type of runner who is doing what's called an overstride, and you are taking a really big step, theoretically, that sounds like it should be a good idea. It's like, well, if I'm going to take, you know, 5,000 steps during a race and I'm covering more ground per step, you know, that means that I'm going to be traveling faster, right? And it's like, theoretically, I like where your head's at, but it just doesn't shake out that way when we actually do it. Because what ends up happening is each step takes so much longer to perform, you actually lose speed because there's more time to, you know, recover from that step. There's more like, you know, air time, all these things with like taking too long of a step. And then, you know, you could say, well, okay, well, in that case, I'll take really, really quick steps. And it's like, all right, well, now you're not covering very much ground per step, and you're also going to lose speed. So that's why the formula for speed is, you know, stride rate times stride length. So if we know that's true, then we have specific types of drills that can actually take advantage of our speed. I'm sorry, specific types of drills that are going to improve our speed, right? One of those things is what's called assisted speed drills or overspeed drills. Okay, so overspeed drills are something that looks like this. It is actually where you get a little bit of assistance on your speed drills. So you can actually see this band here gives him resistance in one section, and then he's actually being pulled on the band in the other direction. That's causing him to, you know, either fall flat on his face or he's going to have to like turn his feet over faster. So overspeed drills like this, right? He is literally being pulled by these little bands here. So in this version, like he's backpedaling, right? That backpedaling is working against this rubber band. And then this guy's going to pull, you're going to see right here, he's actually turning it around. And then he's going to give him a pull. And that pull is, you know, adding to the overspeed side of it, right? So he goes and then he pulls him back. That rubber band is acting as an overspeed drill. Now, it's not always the most practical thing. So one of the other ways you can do this is simply running downhill. Running downhill is actually a really good example of a speed drill. By the way, don't do this on a super steep hill. That would be crazy. About a 5 to 6% grade. I'll show you an example of like what that looks like. Okay, not as high as the high examples here. About 5 to 6% would be about this much. Like about like that. That's about as much. Not this, okay? I don't want anybody sprinting down Runyon Canyon, you know? Although I used to do that, which was really fun. I used to train a client who lived at the top of Runyon Canyon, and he had really bad knees, so hiking like up and downhill was really hard for him. He could really only hike uphill. So what we would do is I would pick him up at his house, drop him off at the bottom of the hill, run his car back up to the top of the hill, park it, and then I would run from his house down Runyon Canyon and meet him, and we would race. And so I would literally like motivate him by being like, I better not beat you to that one tree today. And that used to be like our warm-up sessions. So that is a specialized over speed drill, right? It's actually sprinting downhill or, you know, being pushed or being pulled in such a way that like, if you don't keep up, you're gonna fall, right? This is really good for improving your stride rate. So if we're looking at this side of the equation, over speed drills are really good at improving this part of the equation, right? In fact, actually, you know what I'll do is I'm going to go ahead and delete this here. Oops. And we'll draw a little line here. So this is going to be like over speed drills are going to be an effective way to train for that. So that's a really good way to improve that. And then we have resisted speed drills. And resisted speed drills are the types of drills that are focused primarily on improving your stride force, okay? So this is going to be something where you're actually going to apply resistance to someone, and now they are going to have to improve their force output. So you can see here, he's dragging this other person behind him using like a resistance band because it's nice and soft. You can do that. You can try doing this with something like hard, like a rope, but I really don't recommend it. It's uncomfortable for your client. The band is nice and soft, and that's really what you want to see instead. And so, you know, they are going to sprint, and they are being pulled in the opposite direction. If she was pushing a weight sled, that'd be a really good example. If she was pulling a weight sled, that would also be a really good example. But notice how like you see a much further like forward lean in this version, right? Again, this is associated with what we know about running. Like if you look at the other version, actually, let's pull up the over speed drill. I want to see one where he's sprinting forward. Okay, so let's see him going forward here. Notice how, well, he kind of did it at the end there. I'm not quite getting exactly the example. Oh, here we go. Okay, now watch how much more upright this style of running will be. So she's going to pull him, and he is going to have to keep up, or he's going to get pulled flat on his face, right? Or, well, now she tied it to herself. I'm not sure who's, man, it's just like this video is like 1 minute long, and it's like a full minute of it is explanation. So notice how much more upright you are when you're being pulled forward. Again, that's kind of what we see when it comes to like a sprint, right? Sprinting starts at a very intense angle because it's all about force production until eventually you get up to speed, and then you get into a much more upright position where you're focused more on velocity, and you can take advantage of those stretch shortening cycles. So see here, she's really leaning forward. This is working on force production. And then here, we're very much working on force velocity, right? So this would be a really good example of resisted speed drills, okay? So resisted speed drills are also a really great way to kind of improve your speed. So it might be something kind of like this. Okay, so those are sort of two different techniques, right? Resisted speed drills will improve your length. Over speed drills will improve your rate. So generally when you're doing this, by the way, when it comes to like these types of speed drills, you want to move against like either a horizontal or a vertical load. You know, if you're doing a resisted speed drill, it could be jumping with like, you know, a certain amount of body weight or certain like a weight vest or something like that. Or if you're doing like lifting. Now, I will say, speaking of weight vests, a lot of people think that's a really good way to improve like your speed and stuff. You'll see people like running with like weight vests on. I don't know if everybody's seen these, but like running with a weight vest. You'll see people doing this sometimes. I'm not saying that it's not harder to do. Like if you're running with one of these weight vests, I'm not saying that your run will not be more difficult, because I believe that, yeah, this is absolutely going to make the run much more challenging for sure. However, I would also argue that it's not the best way to actually improve your speed, because you have to kind of look at where the resistance is being loaded, right? Like if you asked me to make my, you know, let's say I'm doing shoulder presses, right? And I want to make this heavier, I would add weight in a direction that I'm traveling. If you were to make it heavier and like apply some resistance, like let's say you tied, and this is a very weird example, but let's say you tied a resistance band around the bar before you put the plates on it. And what I mean by that is like you took this end of the bar over here, you took this end of the bar, and you just stretched a rubber band from one side to the other, and now it's pulling like this. Pulling like this does not make the exercise any harder, right? Like the resisted force is going against gravity this way. So by pulling like this, it doesn't do anything. Well, when you look at like running with a weight vest, you got to remember that weight vest is being pulled by gravity 90 degrees straight down, right? So it's being pulled just by gravity. And again, I said running is at a slight angle. So you want your resistance to be applied at an angle similar to your run, which is actually why running against a resistance band like this would actually improve your speed way better than running with a weight vest like this. Now, if you're sprinting uphill and you've got a weight vest on, now you're going to kind of win me over with the argument a little bit better, because now the hill is at an angle, a crazy angle, and now it more similarly matches like gravity. So now, okay, sure, there's a little bit of a better argument there. But generally, like, I'm not a big fan of running with weight vests. I think weight vests are a really cool tool if you're doing like jumping. Great, yeah, going straight up and down, that's against the resistance, right? But I'm not a huge fan of using like weight vests as a way to improve your speed. Mental toughness, absolutely. Endurance, yeah, probably, right? Speed, not so much. So now let's go ahead and talk about, I already kind of talked about it plenty, but let's look at the components of your speed, right? Again, it is going to be the product of your stride rate times your stride length. Your stride rate, how many steps you are taking, your stride length, how much ground you are covering. If your stride rate is really high and you're taking steps like this, that's great, but you're probably not covering very much ground. If you are, covering lots of ground, well, then maybe you're not exactly traveling very fast. This is also where we can use different types of drills, right? We can use like a fast, if you've got a client, who has really good stride length, but they don't have very good stride rate, well, you can do like fast feet drills, right? Where you, oh my God, really? I'm not looking for the speed ladder yet, please. Just show me. All right, whatever, I'll do it myself. If you're seeing somebody do that type of drill where they're doing this kind of thing, right, and they're just moving their feet as fast as they can, that's a really good way to help someone who maybe doesn't have fast feet, develop their stride rate. And then something like bounding, which we were looking at yesterday, where someone is literally taking as large of steps as possible, and they're like doing these big long jumps with every single step. You know, he's definitely overstriding there, right? Big steps, but like that's the type of drill that we're looking for. And then eventually you can get into like really big single leg bounds, something like that. You can do alternating leg bounding. Bounding is just a really terrific way to work on your stride length, right? So we've got two different types of drills here, right? We've got you know, rate drills and length drills. Bounding and fast speed are both based in velocity, but then we've got over speed drills where we might pull our client or have them sprint down here, which is also based in velocity. And then we've got a good force drill in our resisted runs where they have to push a weight sled or pull a weight sled or pull against like a band. So all those are really good. And then here is sort of the definitions, right? Your stride rate, the time taken to complete like a stride. Stride length, the distance covered with each stride. Now, let's talk a little bit about mechanics when it comes to running. So one of the things that we also know will help is obviously like improving your overall running form. You know, we do not want to see, we don't want too much like stride rate because that can shorten your stride length and then you're going to lose speed. We also don't want too much stride length because then you overstride and that will, you know, affect your speed as well. So we want to make sure that we are running with proper mechanics in order to have that, you know, optimal like speed and force production. And this is where we need to look at your overall posture, which, like I said, should be slightly leaned forward. Your arm movement, which we don't want to see. Sometimes you'll see those people who like, they're doing this kind of run, kind of looks like Popeye. That's not what we're looking for. We want to see this like in line where your elbows are tucked in at your sides. The way I've always heard it coached, imagine you're reaching into your pocket and grabbing something. You know, just a little bit of arm swing right there, not this side to side action. In fact, I'm having trouble doing it right now because my fucking chair's in my way. But yeah, tucked in at your side. That's what we're looking for. And then we want to see in your legs proper front side mechanics and proper back side mechanics. Your front side mechanics are what your front leg is doing. That's what we're seeing right here. She's got proper front side mechanics right here. And then backside mechanics are what your plant leg or your back leg is doing, okay? So proper front side mechanics includes hip flexion. You can see here, she's got her knee pulled up towards her. Backside mechanics include hip extension. So her leg is extended away. So hip flexion for front side mechanics, hip extension for backside mechanics. Front side mechanics also include knee flexion. So we're seeing like the bend here. Backside mechanics include knee extension, right? So the exact opposite. Proper front side mechanics also, and this is probably the one that most people struggle with, includes ankle dorsiflexion. Your ankle should be pulled up, getting ready for your next step. Your toes should be pulled towards your face. We don't want to see that lazy foot hanging down because then it's going to clip the ground as we try to like swing the leg forward into our next step. You'll see people do it all the time. And when you see people who have like limited ankle dorsiflexion, when they run, they do that sort of pronated run that we've talked about before. Let's see here. Overpronated run. So you'll see people who do this overpronation. You can see actually if I slow this down here. Right, see how she's scooping to the side? See how like she does this like kind of scooping action with each step? That scooping action is because like there's a limited amount of dorsiflexion that's happening. And so if she doesn't scoop to the side, her brain has kind of subconsciously picked up on the fact that her toe might clip or slide along the ground, which is uncomfortable. So instead it's finding a way to kind of get there using a different path, right? And then we also see like a little bit of like weakness in the ankle, which is why it's like falling flat on the inside as well. We call this I call that a scooper, like a person who runs sort of in this like scooping action instead of picking up their foot and getting into the next step. So front side mechanics, like I said, hip flexion, knee flexion, and then ankle dorsiflexion. Backside mechanics, that's your plantar flexion. Your back foot should be toe pointed down, and you are kicking off with the ball of your foot using your calf, you know, glutes, hamstrings, quads, all of it. So that is what we see in sort of every stride. So you do want to have these. Here's the thing. You want to have these memorized for this class. I don't think they ask you about these in the regular test, but I know I've got a homework question about this, but I don't think you're going to see this on the regular exam. So neutral spine and hip flexion, knee flexion, dorsiflexion. For the front side mechanics, hip extension, knee extension, ankle plantar flexion for your backside mechanics. And then obviously each leg needs to be good at all of those movements. So the reason we're making you aware of this, right? The reason we're talking about this is because some people will struggle with hip flexion. Some people will struggle with hip extension. Most people struggle with hip extension. But like, you know, everybody's going to have like positions that they are, you know, good and bad at. We want to be able to work on, you know, filling our clients' gaps in. So take a video of your client while they're running and analyze their mechanics. Look to see what they're good at and look to see what they struggle with, right? So talking about each step that you are taking, when we talk about like a stride, right? There is your driving phase, which you can see she's in the middle of right here, where she's really driving super hard off that back foot. There's the recovery phase, which is basically the air time in between. And then there's the support phase as, you know, the leg lands on the ground and then she's transitioning into that next step. We need to analyze all of those things. So when we look at like a stride cycle, can I get a good picture of this? I'm gonna get dumb internet stuff. Okay, no, I got half of it. That'll work. So you can see, right? This is like as they are planted, right? This leg here is like making initial contact. And then there's the recovery as they are like transitioning, you know, this leg through into the next one and then driving off with that leg again, right? So drive phase and then recovery phase and then plant phase and rinse and repeat, right? Sorry, not plant phase. They call it support phase at NASM. Drive phase, recovery phase, support phase. Driving, recovering, supporting, repeat. So that is what we look at, and we want to analyze that. You know, we want to analyze that in our clients to make sure that it really is, you know, not too impactful. This is actually where, you know, a few years ago, the whole barefoot running thing came into popularity. Which I'm actually a fan of, like minimalist running. I do actually really like it. I don't run barefoot and I don't wear those like silly barefoot shoes or anything like that, the Vibrams, but like I'm not against those things. But you'll see, let me see here. I want to find this one specific video. Oh, this is close. This is Christopher McDougall. I freaking love this guy. He's my favorite author. Let's see here. Minimalist running impact. No, god dang it. There's this really cool video that I used to show in class and it's been years, so I've lost it. Yeah. 4-foot running. Last try. Ooh, that's close. Oh, it's a picture instead of a video. All right, well, okay. So if we're looking at the level of impact that we see, God dang, I really, really, really wish I could find that old video. When you look at the amount of impact that someone makes while they're like running, you can actually watch. Oh, actually, yeah, here we go. This is not the video, but it's totally the same thing if we can actually get those lines to show back up. I just saw it in the preview. There we go. So if we look at like the angle of like this person, right, you'll notice that like in this version, she's not performing very much like knee flexion, which is making it harder for her to like transition from one to the next. Whereas here, she's got lots of knee flexion. That's going to make a shorter lever for her to be able to like swing her hip forward. And then in this version, she's landing on her heel and recovering. And in this version, she's going to land on the front of her foot. And we'll actually see a little bit of a difference here in how they run, sort of 2 weeks apart, right? Like this is before and this is after. You can see there's a big kind of difference there. God, this video doesn't, it's not even a freaking video. It's just images. All right. Never, ever. This is weird. Being in person is so much handier. I used to have people run down the hallway. Sorry, I'm frustrated. Talking about my favorite thing, and I can't show you guys what I want to show you. So anyway, it's a lot more impact when you are running heel to toe than it is when you are running on the ball of your foot. And that is because of like your proper front side mechanics. If you don't have that toe pull, you know, you have that lazy foot that's just kind of like hanging down, you are much more likely to hit the ground harder. Your recovery phase is going to be longer. Everything is going to be longer. And that's why it's really important to make sure that you're learning how to like, you know, perform plenty of knee flexion, plenty of hip flexion, and plenty of dorsiflexion, which I would argue is the most important part. All of it's important, but that dorsiflexion is the one that I see the most common that people struggle with. So those are the components of our speed drill. Any questions on what speed is, guys? Everybody feeling good on speed? Questions, comments, concerns? Nope. All right. Okay, let's take a look at agility. So the next component of an SAQ program is the agility component, right? So agility is your directional change, okay? This is your ability to change direction without actually losing too much speed. So you need to be able to accelerate, you need to be able to decelerate, and then you also need to be able to like actually like, you know, switch directions that you're running in. So if you were doing like a box drill, for instance, which is basically where you sprint, side shuffle, back pedal, side shuffle, or sprint, side shuffle, back pedal, karaoke. You know, if you do like just a 4-way little box and work your way around, even if you were to just like run around a box and just change direction each time, that would still be an agility drill. This is we call it multi-directional speed, okay? And there are a lot of really fun agility drills out there. So if we look at like a left drill, I guess we'll do this one. I've seen this video before. I hate this video. It's so slow. So you do like a sprint, and then you do a back pedal. Then you turn into a side shuffle. This is called the left drill. You do a side shuffle. Also, this guy's cading his knees in. Karaoke. Pay no attention at all to this guy's form. None. And then finally, you do a sprint at the end. Right? This is actually classically, this guy's traveling. Look at how upright he is during his run. No. And obviously he's probably doing it just because it's so short of a distance, but yeah, this is what the left test is, okay? So sprint, back pedal, side shuffle, and then now he's doing a karaoke. He's doing a karaoke, and then at the end, he does a big sprint at the end. That's the left drill. That's a really good one. There's the T test. This is a really good agility drill as well. You're going to see her sprint as hard as she can. So she'll sprint, touch a cone, and then she's going to side shuffle, and then she's going to side shuffle and touch the cone. She's going to side shuffle again, and then she's going to backpedal. Please give me a fast version. Nope. Why make the video? All right. So that is the agility. That's our agility T drill. That's also a really good one. Again, you would not do it that slow, nor would you take pauses at all. Pausing is literally the antithesis of agility. Do not pause. You want to move as fast as possible. So you wouldn't do it that way. You would sprint it as hard as possible. So changes in direction, the box drill, the T drill are all really good ones. Acceleration, deceleration, the left drill is really good. That's what we're looking for with agility. So when you are coaching this with your clients, make sure with your beginners, start with the proper movement skill, learn how to do the movements in particular first. Then you can start working on like getting up to speed. And then eventually you can get into like reaction based on that speed where they're moving absolutely as fast as they can. And you are not so much paying attention to maybe even how fast they get through the whole drill. You're paying attention to how fast they can transition. Or you do a version of the agility drill that shortens how long they have to transition, right? And that's what an agility drill is going to be. And then lastly, we have quickness. And quickness is the one that gets confused for agility all the time, because our definition here is your ability to respond to an external stimulus and change body position in the briefest amount of time. So agility is your ability to change direction, which people, you know, it's like when you think about changing direction, if I were traveling this way and then all of a sudden I traveled this way, people I think sometimes get these definitions mixed up because they're like, you're changing body position. No. That's not changing body. I mean, it is changing body position, but that's not what we're talking about. Agility is changes in direction that I am overall traveling. It's like a macro, right? Like the main way that my whole body is changing direction, that's agility. Quickness is like responding to my body position. Like if I were running and someone threw something at me and I had to turn and catch it, that's a quickness drill. Or if I had to like respond to something as it happens, and I don't know when it's going to happen, and then I have to like change body position, that's a quickness drill. Think about like, you know, my favorite example of a quickness drill, which is not like a lower body like quickness drill, but if we look at like boxer quickness drill, this is a very weird looking piece of equipment. I don't even remember what it's called. Tennis ball. Here it is. This is so weird looking, but this is actually a really great example of quickness. And I think this is super impressive. So he has a hat with an elastic band tied to it, and I think a tennis ball on the end. And he's going to punch it and keep it from like coming back and hitting him in the face. That is a really great example of quickness. Like he is hand-eye coordination, like developing and changing, like, you know, he's only changing his upper body in response. But if we did like a partner mirror drill, that's a really good example of a quickness situation, right? So what's going to happen here is both of these athletes are being instructed to run. One of them is the leader and one of them is the follower. So the leader knows exactly what they're going to do, right? They're making a choice. But the partner has no idea what direction they're going. So like they're just trying to keep up, right? Like this guy here is clearly like kind of leading the drill and he's trying to juke this guy off, right? So he is performing as many jukes as possible. He's trying to lose him, right? And he doesn't know what direction he's going to travel in. He's just trying to kind of keep up. That's a partner mirror drill. Okay. So like you can see like all the like kind of frantic juking, and look at how focused you know, look at like this guy right here. Like he's doing a great job of like, he's watching this guy's hips and he's looking to see if his hips are turning in any specific direction. That's how he's going to know where to go. Look at how much focus this guy has. This kid's killing it. And he's keeping up with him because he's paying attention to like what his body movement is, right? So that's what a quickness drill is. It's responding to an external stimulus. You have no idea where it's going to come from, and you have to respond in kind. It's a reaction drill, right? So that's what quickness is. Hugely important for athletics, right? Like hugely, hugely important in the world of sports, right? So when it comes to progressing quickness training, we are trying to establish like coordination in the specific movement. Then we eventually improve the speed of the movement. And then eventually we improve the reactionary demand, right? We make it more difficult where they don't necessarily know what's going to happen. I can never remember what the name of this combine is. NFL Combine Catching Drill. Yeah, okay, here we go. So here's a really good example. Like this is a quickness drill, right? So he's gonna catch a football from the front, he's gonna turn around and catch another one, and then he's gonna make a sprint. Catch, catch, sprint, catch, catch. These are all good examples. Like now, obviously, like you could make an argument, it's like, well, he's accelerating and he's moving in one intended direction. There's some speed components there. Absolutely. I'm not saying that like there isn't speed that can be incorporated to a quickness drill, but I would primarily classify this as a quickness drill because he has no idea. Look at that. That was a bad throw, right? Like that one's the breadbasket. That one's low and behind him, right? So he had to respond to that. That's why that's a quickness drill. And then, you know, a little directional change there. So maybe a little agility at the end, right? And then sprint, catch. Oh, no, he missed. That's not what you want to see. So anyway, that's a good example of like a quickness drill. There's a lot of different, oftentimes quickness drills will be very sports specific. So I want to show you a really fun little video here that incorporates all of these things together. SAQ course. Is it this one? Man, there's such a fun video. I always have such a hard time. I have it saved in my favorites, so it just would pop up more often. God, give me 1 second, guys. I just gotta find this darn thing. This video is so cool. I show it in class all the time. I just realized I should save it to its own playlist, and that way I know where it's at. No. Oh, no, definitely not. We just watched that crap video. Circuit. Let's try that. What about SAQ for soccer? Man, I hate YouTube so much. There it is. Okay, here we go. I am just riding the struggle bus today with finding the videos that I need. All right. This friggin' video is awesome. This is actually a pro football player. I don't know if you guys know who he is. Ivan Obradovic. I don't know. But this guy friggin' rocks. Fast feet, really fast feet, jump, jump, jump. Right, so this is very much like a speed drill, right? He's doing speed into even more speed, and then a little bit of explosive. I'd say those are like plyometrics, into a quickness drill. He has to shoot something into a goal, right? And then here he's doing like a high knee variation. High knees are really good for improving your force production. And then doing little jumps. All right, so I'm gonna skip forward just a little bit, and we're gonna watch this sort of evolve. He gets a little lateral movement in there. And then eventually he gets into a second circuit here. So he's gonna learn the new circuit, jumping into the rings, going through the slalom, big jumps, little jumps. And then he's going to put them together once he learns it. Good God, that's so fast. And then all the way to the end. So a little directional change at the end there, right? Like lots of agility here, lots of directional change, but then like he gets up to speed, brings all the way down, changes directions again. Now they're going to teach him a third one. Single leg jumps. All the way through. And now that he knows how to do it, he goes through the whole thing again. Sprint, change direction, little target. I'd argue maybe a little quickness there, but it's also very directional based. All the way back to the end, sprint, change direction. All right, let's get to the end where he does all four of them. So then, and a big one at the end here. Single leg jumps, one, all the way to the end. Two. I've never played a day of soccer in my life, and I freaking love this video. Anyway, pretty freaking cool, right? I love this. All right, now really quickly, I'm going to, I'll subscribe for a reason, but save this video and I'm going, yeah, I have it in 2 separate playlists. Great new playlist. SAQ video to show in class. I always look for this video. Anyway, so that is speed and agility and quickness. We're putting them all together, right? All right, so let's go ahead and take a look at our program design stuff. All right, now in the realm of like how we are going to put this together with NASM, I actually have to make a new OPT chart here. If we're talking about using the OPT model to write a program here, hold on just a second. I need a new one of these. All right, so if we are talking about this, SAQ is a little bit different than anywhere else on the OPT model. So we've got a little bit of a kind of a rule break here. Now, traditionally, we had like core stuff, and then we had, core stabilization, core strength, and core power, right? For stabilization, strength, and power clients. That was pretty easy to understand. SAQ doesn't really work that way. SAQ, there's no such thing as like speed stabilization you know, strength stabilization, power stabilization. It just isn't organized that way. Instead, what we are going to do is we're going to have sort of a description of how this works. So if we're looking at this, clients who are in the stabilization level or clients who are in level 1, they are going to get drills that primarily focus on like one intended direction. I need to take this out further, actually. Sorry, I'm just setting this up here. There we go. Okay, so clients who are in the stabilization level, instead of looking at it as like core stabilization or whatever, what we're going to see instead is we are going to see these type of clients are going to get primarily speed drills. Okay. And so we are going to see primarily drills that focus on limited horizontal inertia and limited unpredictability. Okay. So when we're looking at this, the reason we're breaking it down that way is because, and like the reason I'm saying speed drills is you can do a little bit of agility with clients in the stabilization phase. You can do a little bit of quickness in the stabilization phase. There's a little bit of wiggle room here, but primarily the main type of drills that we are focused on are speed drills. We are limiting the horizontal inertia, right? We're limiting the agility. We're limiting the unpredictability. That means that we're limiting the quickness side of things. So with clients in stabilization, most of the time you are going to do speed drills. Then we've got clients who are in the strength phase. Well, they are going to do speed plus agility drills. Okay. So now we are going to do drills that allow for greater horizontal inertia, but limited unpredictability. Okay, so remember, we said like quickness is all about unpredictability. It's all about doing drills that your client, you know, has to respond to some type of external stimulus. That's what makes it a quickness drill. Well, agility drills are all about directional change. So in clients who are focusing on stabilization, we just focus on moving in one intended direction. Clients who are in strength, we move intended directions and we start changing direction as well, but we still limit the unpredictable part of it, right? We still make sure that our client knows exactly what's coming. They don't have to respond to any external stimulus. And lastly, we got clients who are in the power phase. They're going to get speed and agility and quickness drills. Okay, so these are going to be drills that allow for maximal horizontal inertia and maximal unpredictability. Okay, so now it's like, okay, we're still doing like a speed component here, but now we are allowing for like some horizontal movement and we are allowing for unpredictability, right? So that is our speed, agility, and quickness training. And that's this section right here. So on your OPT template, if we're looking at this, and it looks like something like this, you know, if we are designing like a whole workout, we would start with our warm-up. That would mean a little bit of SMR, a little bit of flexibility, and then, you know, doing a little bit of cardio, right, to get the body nice and warm. Then we would do a little bit of core, a little bit of balance, a little bit of reactive. Now all my underactive muscles are kind of turned on. And now I can get into the sport-specific stuff. Maybe I do a speed drill, like a 40-yard sprint, right? That's a great speed drill. Or maybe I do another one, right? And actually here, I'll put this in. We'll say this is a speed drill, right? And maybe I do another one. Maybe I go through like a speed, ladder, and we do 2 ins, okay? 2 ins is where both feet go into each ladder, okay? So, right? And that's another speed drill. Okay. If my client was in stabilization, this is pretty much the type of drill that I would primarily focus on, right? Maybe it would be a side shuffle, right? Now, side shuffling, by the way, speed doesn't have to be just running back and forth. You know, it doesn't have to always be in the sagittal plane. Speed can also be frontal plane movement. You can do a side shuffle for 40 yards, right? And then side shuffle back. You're still traveling in one intended direction, right? And then like, you know, like I said, yeah, you sprint down and then sprint back. It's like, well, wait a minute, that was directional change. Again, this is why there's some wiggle room. Yeah, I can do a little directional change with a client in stabilization. I can't expect them to only do things in straight lines for the entire workout, right? I can do a little bit. I am limiting horizontal inertia, not eliminating it, right? Like I'm just keeping it, you know, relatively simple. I'm not going crazy on the agility side of things, right? And that's really the distinction there. I know that it's, you know, I know that there's a little bit of directional change that may occur, but that's not what I am like primarily focused on. It's also not the thing that I'm like primarily coaching. So if I do see directional change, you know, that's okay. It's not what I'm primarily focused on with my client, right? So I would say like, you know, I wouldn't necessarily spend all the time in the world like progressing through directional change. If my client's focused on speed, I would progress them by focusing on the speed aspects of things, right? So that is what we are going to see in our example. Now, let's say our client is a strength level client. Maybe they're in phase 2 or, you know, 3 and 4, right? Well, now I can still do these drills. I can still do some speed stuff, but now I can start incorporating a little bit of agility. So maybe I decide to do a T drill, right? That one where they sprint, touch the cone, side shuffle, and then they backpedal, right? Or I could do a left drill, right? That's the sprint, backpedal, side shuffle, karaoke, sprint, right? There's a lot of directional change there. Or a box drill, right? Where they sprint, side shuffle, backpedal, karaoke, right? And there's a million of them, right? There's the 505 drill. Remember I showed you guys that one the other day? That's this one where the client like sprints, you know, from one cone to the next.
Getting out of that.
So you start in the center. All the way down. I was wondering why that happened. Touch the cone. Oh, man. So start in the center. This is a very short drill, right? But it's a very good one for agility. And then you are going to sprint, touch, and then sprint, and then just power through the end. And that's the whole drill. So that's the 5-10-5 drill, right? So now we've got 2 speed drills and an agility drill. So lastly, I can do some quickness drills, right? So quickness drills are all about reaction time, right? I have to like respond to something. One of my favorite versions is the modified box drill. Okay, and that's one I haven't showed you just yet. But the modified box drill looks something like this, or sometimes called the modified 5-point drill. And what you do is you have your client start in the center. Oh, that's not it. Okay, yeah. Okay, here we go. So here we go. This is the modified box drill. So what's going to happen is the coach is going to tell him to do something, he doesn't know what he's going to tell him. So he's going to lay it out ahead of time. He's going to say, this is cone 1, 2, 3, and 4, or he's going to, whatever order he chooses to label them out in. And what's going to happen is the athlete has no idea what box he's going to go to until he tells him to run to it. Is this just a regular 4-box drill? Of course it is. Never mind. Hold on. Another failure today. It gets harder every time because of the stupid history that I get in my videos. You know what? Actually, let's do this incognito because that will reset YouTube. Modified box drill. I should do this every time. Unfreaking believable. So what you do is you set up 4 cones. And it'll look something kind of like this. So you put a cone here, or I'm sorry, you set up 5 cones. You put one here, 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 and here, and then you put one in the center. You instruct your client to stand in the center. You label them. This would be cone 1. This is cone 2, cone 3, and cone 4. Now their job is to get to whichever cone you tell them to get to, and then back to the center as fast as possible. They have no idea which one you are going to say. So you would start them here and say 2, and so they would sprint and go back to the center. And you'd say 4, back, sprint and back to the center. 2, back to the cone, back to the center. 3, to the cone, back to the center. 3, to the cone, back to the center. 1, back to the center. They don't know where you're going to go. That's why it's a quickness drill. Now, obviously, there's a lot of agility there. They have to sprint and change direction a lot, but they don't know where it's going. That's the modified box drill, okay? And that's a quickness drill. So now you've got a client who's in phase 5. They're going to get speed and agility and quickness. All of this is going to depend on your client. It's going to depend, you're going to pick the types of drills that are related to your athlete's, specific sport. But like that is how we are going to sort of incorporate SAQ training. So on your, when you're looking at this on your test, guys, the way that they'll ask you about this is like clients who are in stabilization, that's level 1 or phase 1, primarily focus on speed drills, right? Limited horizontal inertia, limited unpredictability. Clients in the strength level, they're going to get speed and agility drills. So greater horizontal inertia, but still limited unpredictability. And then we think of like clients in level 3 or phase 5, right? Speed plus agility plus quickness, maximal horizontal inertia, maximal unpredictability. Your horizontal inertia represents agility. Unpredictability represents quickness. Okay, stressful day to try to pull up those videos. I got a little cranky there. Any questions, comments, or concerns today, guys? How's everybody feeling? I'm gonna blow up YouTube.
I gotta go over this stuff again.
Well, so here's the thing. This stuff is the reason I wanted to show so many videos, and I think the reason why I'm so freaking anxious is this is really hard to absorb without actually doing it. This is what we're gonna get together. If you're not super comfortable like sprinting through, all these things, that's totally okay. But when we get together next week, this is what we're gonna do. It's gonna be so fun. We're actually not gonna meet at Sochi. We're gonna be meeting in the park. And we'll have a chance to actually kind of go through some of these drills. I've got a speed ladder. I've got lots of cones. I'm going to set it all up. It'll be a freaking obstacle course. It's a super fun time. Just make sure you bring water and sunscreen. And that's about it today, guys. Yeah, that's all I got for you. I wasn't able to get that darn video rendered until like I went to bed last night. So you're going to get 2 emails from me today, fixing yesterday's kind of goof up. because my computer is really slow and does not like to render video. But that's about all I got. I'll let you guys out of here and see you tomorrow.